Good evening. Call this meeting to order. Let's begin with the pledge. Hello, everyone. To begin tonight's work session, I'm going to hand it to our village manager to introduce our first item.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good evening, everybody. First up, I'd like to welcome Reverend Mary Pfeiffer from the Police Reform Committee, and she is here to give a report for the Police Reform Advisory Committee. So thank you, Reverend Pfeiffer.
Okay, and now it's green. Ooh. All righty. Now the whole world can hear, exactly. Thank you all for having me this evening. And we've had an exciting year. So I don't know if okay, it's up there. We're going to, it's very brief, we're going to go over the year in review, our goals for this coming year, and then our recommendation. I have the next slide. Oh, she introduced me. Okay, so I'm Reverend Mary Pfeiffer. Oh. Oh boy. I liked Karen's introduction. Um, I'm the PrAC chair, and I've been a resident in Ossining for 50 years this year, I think. And you want more than that? Oh, she said that. Well, not the 50 years, but anyway. Okay. So you can go to our next slide because I said we're gonna go to our year in review, then do our goals, and then our recommendation. So this year we basically focused on two pillars from the 21st Century Policing Report, building trust and legitimacy and community policing. Those were the two. So the first thing we did, we asked for the update to the quick link on the village website to inform the community that police reform still continues in Ossining. And just the new page, it goes over our scope of work, which is to build trust in the reform process, enhance community police relations, and ensure the safety and well-being of all those who live, work, or visit Ossining, to have positive interactions with the police department. In September, we had our first public work session, and that was primarily to seek concerns or feedbacks for topics that could be used in our community engagement meetings the following month. And topics included just police accountability and transparency, rules of conduct for the police officers, and to revisit previous recommendations that the previous board had given to the previous police reform board had given to the Board of Trustees. We had also, during that discussion, there were CPCRB updates, discussions on whether Ossining could post blotter type information, traffic stop demographic availability, and officer discretions during stops and officer safety. And the issue to revisit from the previous recommendations was ending qualified immunity. So we basically have pretty positive comments on that. There were about 14 people in attendance, which included the chief of police and PrAC members and members of the community and other members that were not from our community. Can I have the next slide, please? So we appreciate the investment that Chief Zimmerman has made in collaborating with PrAC. We had recommended the National Night Out, which happened October 4th. And they owned that. It looked beautiful if you made it out. The kids were having fun. There was food, there was music. We also suggested blotter information to be posted to the OPD website. And now we have quarterly Ossining police statistics posted. And then we had 3 community engagement meetings. So can you go to the next slide, please? So in our community engagement meetings, they took place in October. We had a stakeholders meeting, and then we had basically a village and a town meeting. Topics included use of body cams for cops, police, and resident interaction, some local incidents that needed clarification from the chief, and the increasing homeless population on State and Maple Streets. The number in attendance for all 3 of those meetings was 49. The largest meeting was at the village on the 22nd, was the village meeting on the 22nd. And we had positive feedback from that meeting as well. Next slide, please. We'd just like to send a special thank you to all those who supported PRAC's community engagement projects with in-kind donations of snacks, food, and space. And that was the OPD themselves, NU, Bishop Whitaker with Horak Ministries, Reverend Sean Jones with Star Bethlehem, Reverend Hal Rourke with Grace Community Church, and myself and Holy Spirit Church. The next slide, please. So we plan to meet our goals for 2025 in collaboration with the OPD through open and honest dialogue. We would like to continue our community sector meetings. We kept calling them community meetings, community sector meetings. It was a community meeting. And conduct a community police survey, also revisit the recommendation to end qualified immunity and evaluate OPD candidate hiring policies, including the background checks and interviews, and to partner with OPD to recruit for and with them. Next slide, please. So we believe that building trust between the community and the police department has to be a sustained effort, and it has to be ongoing. The police departments listed, they have embraced the community policing policies set forth by the 21st Century Policing Report. I'm not going to read all of the names of the various police departments. And so our recommendation is that the board establish PRAC as a permanent committee. And that is all I have. Thank you.
I will begin with comments from my colleagues. Trustee White, you'll begin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Pfeiffer. I actually attended the
Yes.
community meeting at Star. It was
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yes.
I learned a lot. And I was wondering, as a permanent committee, what would the role of PRAC be in contrast to the CPCRB? Would you have overlapping members? Would you deal with similar things? What would they be completely, like, how would they be separate?
Okay. The CPCRB deals with cases and things like that. We are primarily to engage the community with the Ossining Police Department in conversation, in getting ideas, concerns, and things to bring to them, because their primary goal is law enforcement. It's not necessarily sitting and listening to different concerns that the community has that deals with public safety. And we thank Chief Zimmerman he was at every meeting answering every question with all of the various cops that came with him. And at the end of the one at Star Bethlehem, and actually at all of them, the community just engaged all of the officers who were there. And I thought that that was one of the biggest impacts that was made, that someone from the community can talk to an officer and just talk. I know that they already have coffee with a cop, but this was like an expansion for from that venue to a larger venue with other letting it be open so that the community can say, okay, I can talk to my officers, like taking ownership of their officers. And the officers, they owned it. They answered questions. The chief let them say how they felt about things. They were able to share their experiences with the community. And I think that also helped everyone really learn about what they do on a daily basis, the things that we see and the things that we don't see. And it makes you proud as a resident to say, hey, they're doing more things than they even claim themselves because they want to and they care about the community. So if there's an issue, you feel more comfortable saying, oh, well, I already know this person cares, so I will be heard. It's just a bridge. A bridge.
you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for coming to the meeting.
Casada.
You're welcome. There it is. It sounds like.
Thank you, Reverend. You mentioned that the meeting on the 22nd was, I guess, the most
Large.
visited
Mhm.
in any regards. And you said also you got some feedback. Could you give me one or two examples of the feedback that you have in either negative or positive, and how would you address that to the community members going forward on 2025?
Okay. One of the comments that I got was, wow, we should have been having these for forever. And I think the largest comment was that people thought that this was a great beginning. I forget exactly what they said. I didn't receive any negative comments.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
That's very positive to see that there was not, I'm assuming they had some concerns and clarifications that our police officers are there to
Mhm.
help our community and
Mhm.
outside members too. It doesn't have to be a member of the community, that's.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like because when someone gets pulled over or stopped,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter if they're not from Austin.
Right.
So, and you said there were members not from Austining as well in some of these meetings.
Right.
What was their feedback over
Was it-
hearing these meetings afterwards? What was their take? If you had any, did they approach you or had any conversations with
They
them
didn't
afterwards?
approach me,
Okay.
no.
Were there other,
Okay.
were there other from, what was the reason they were there? Just to observe? Do you know?
They were asking about blotter type information being posted
Okay.
on the OPD website. And then the other one was asking about ending qualified immunity, because that was a recommendation from the original police reform. I think it was called Reinvention Committee, PRRC, that created the original document.
Okay.
But I have to go back and say, were you asking me, was there any negative comments from the people about living in Osning or
No,
anything like that?
Like
Or
if,
just
if maybe,
from the-
maybe I should rephrase that. Was there any concerns that they said, members of the community,
Mhm.
in regards to how they see our police department?
Oh, okay, so there were two concerns about specific families that I think it was their children, some interaction with the police. But Chief Zimmerman addressed that, and then they were given the opportunity to follow up.
Okay,
with him.
fantastic. So that's very good to hear.
Yeah.
So I'm proud to say that the OPD is always an excellent department and reflection of what we actually are here
Yeah.
in the village of Austin. So thank you. I don't have
Thank
any
you.
additional questions, so I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, Robert.
Good evening.
So I just have a couple questions. Your policing goals for 2025.
Yeah.
Can you give me a little background on what the bullet point about evaluating the OPD candidate hiring policies?
Yes, there were some comments on the background checks that the officers get or the candidates
Mhm.
for hiring get. And I haven't finished my own research on it, but looking at 50A, is that what it's called? 50A.org or something like that. So that was just brought up at this last meeting. My apologies for not looking
Oh,
at
it's
that, but
okay.
it's
It's
just a
just-
background
I
check.
just figured maybe it had a little more context to it.
Oh, okay.
And my other question is the towns or villages that you have listed on the last page, are they all permanent committees in those towns and villages?
Yes, they're serving 3 and 4 year terms.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Mary.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I serve as the liaison from the
Yes.
board to the Police Reform Advisory Committee, proudly so. I'll say a couple things, and then I'll have a question for you. So
Sure.
first, Trustee White's point of the difference between the Civilian Police Complaint Review Board, the CPCRB, and the Police Reform Advisory Committee, the PRAC.
Yes.
Very simply, the CPCRB is backward looking in time and reactive, whereas the PRAC is forward looking in time and proactive. Certainly the PRAC's work is looking at what has happened to look at the context, but it's really a proactive committee. What can we do moving forward to make things better? The CPCRB is what has happened in the past that we can take a look at to ensure that everything's on the up and up. So that's the big difference between the two. The scopes of responsibility are notably different. There are members that overlap. At one specifically, there were 2. Now there's 1, but they're largely different groups of folks. To the committee's work this year, as a reminder for folks that are tuning in maybe for the first time, we last year decided that we were going to renew the Police Reform Advisory Committee for another 2 years. So originally it was set to sunset at the end of 2023. We extended it for another 2 years, 2024 and 2025. Now this is the first of 2 annual reports. The next one will come December of next year, reflecting PRAC's work. And the vision is for you all to go out into the community, to do research, to figure out what can we be doing to support the police, to strengthen the police, in conversation with the police, certainly, to across all the points that you mentioned, from policies and approaches and all of this. And that work has already begun, as well as some recommendations, some of which that are not policy, which would be our realm, where you have to go through resolutions and all that, but ones that are maybe more norms or department head decisions. You've taken them straight to the chief, and the chief has enacted them, which is great. I'm glad that we're able to cut down on the red tape as much as possible. In terms of the question of permanent committee, it's a question that will specifically come up a year from now when the Board of Trustees takes a look at the Police Reform Advisory Committee's work and has to renew the resolution to extend it. As you named there, different municipalities have different years of length that these committees last. Ours has been 2 years. It could be that continues to be the case. Maybe gets extended. It depends on where we are, what the committee's work looks like, et cetera. So given the kinds of recommendations that we have so far, as opposed to the kinds of recommendations that were made in the first report in the Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative.
Mhm.
A lot of words. This is a very wordy world that we're in. The PRRC, their recommendations, which were many, as a result of Executive Order 203 from then Governor Cuomo, given what happened with George Floyd in 2020. That report had a ton of recommendations, and there were a couple of years of implementation, including an implementation committee that then evolved into the current version of the PRAC. That had very specific recommendations, some of which were for the chief to enact, some of which were for the Board of Trustees to pass in the form of legislation. So far, the kinds of recommendations that we're seeing so far are more here are community meetings or sector meetings. Here are changes for the chief to make. But so far, other than qualified immunity, nothing yet for the board to do. So I think that is something for next year to take a look at. I know the conversation around qualified immunity is going to gear up and get started next year. That may be the main thing. I would say that anything else that is Board of Trustees specific, that are policies that we can be changing to help to strengthen and support the police, to help strengthen the connection between the community and the police, we certainly are very enthusiastically wanting to do that. So we will continue to work together, certainly, and we will revisit the question of the renewal and the details of the renewal when next year, when we are at that point. But we are excited to hear that the folks that are on the committee want to continue to keep serving. We have here in front of us a whole packet of resumes and interests forms from people in the community that want to serve on various committees. And part of our work is filling committees. And so to have a committee where people unanimously are raising their hands saying we want to serve, that's great. That's not every committee. So we want to take that energy, we want to keep it going. And that's what we're most excited to see.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So the question that I had was if there were any questions or points from anyone. I don't see anyone on the Zoom box, but if there's anyone from the committee that got in touch with you that wanted to say anything beyond what you have expressed.
No.
You have
They want
ably
to raise their
represented-
virtual hand. There are some people that are attendees that are on the committee.
Are there any hands up?
Yes, I'm going to bring Jennifer Cabrera over. If you can hold on just a moment. Jennifer, if you can unmute, that would be great. There's a slight delay, sorry. There we go.
Hi, hang on, I'm getting
Hello.
my camera on. I just wanted to come on for a quick second. I was gonna come in person and there was a car issue. But I wanted to clarify a little bit the distinction between the PRAC and the Civilian Complaint Review Board. The Civilian Complaint Review Board is it's more of an accountability committee. You know, we make recommendations for discipline about very specific complaints. The PRAC is much more broad-based. They can kind of look at what makes sense to be reviewed with the police department, you know, like things like National Night Out or the police blotter, or these community engagement meetings that we've had through PRAC. Those aren't things that the CPCRB could be responsible for because that's outside of our jurisdiction. We're really looking at if a member, anyone has a complaint against a specific officer for a specific incident, we can review that and make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. We give you all advice on that. The PRAC is more along the lines of giving advice about how to manage the police department and really how to engage the community. So,
Thank you. That is a helpful distinction.
thank you.
Absolutely. Jamie, any other hands?
Yes, I'm going to bring Leah Nelson over. it'll take just a moment. Leah, if you can turn your camera on and unmute.
Sorry, that took so long. Hi, I really appreciate this discussion. My name is Leah Nelson. I'm a member of NU Builds as well as my church is in the Ossining area. And I'm a member of the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform. I really, what's concerning me, and I don't know if you can address it right now, but there's a viral video of Officer Brett Malfitano beating up a black man a couple of weeks ago. And Malfitano has a really poor misconduct record from the NYPD where he retired instead of facing the repercussions of his misconduct. I mean, that is why hiring practices should be examined in Ossining. I don't know why Ossining is bringing in officers of this questionable caliber. The rumor is that this gentleman who was beat up was maybe urinating in public, and that's all anyone I know knows. So it would be nice to clarify what happened. I'm not sure if you can talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So I can answer that very directly. The answer is no, that's not something that we can discuss tonight. That is a specific case. And to Jennifer Cabrera's point, the Civilian Police Complaint Review Board is a board specifically set up to respond to specific complaints by specific people about specific officers. The Police Reform Advisory Committee has a broader mission to look at policy and approaches, and that will be our focus for tonight. So thank you for the comment, but unfortunately outside the scope of what we'll be discussing tonight. Any other comments? Jamie?
No, thank you.
Okay. Pastor Mary, thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Pastor Mary. Next topic is a proposed license agreement for 10 Marble Place. Our building inspector, Joe Agostinelli, cannot be here tonight. Oh, he is on.
I
Okay.
tried to promote him, but he.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought,
I'm
I
gonna
know
try to
that he
bring
was
him
having
back over.
some
He had
issues at home.
rejected
So
the
he is
last
here
time.
via Zoom. And Assistant Village Manager Maddie Zahaj will be talking about this issue.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, board. I will turn it over to Joe very shortly, and also Deputy Mayor, if you'd like, to JB Hernandez, who's representing the applicant. 10 Marble Place has been in front of the Planning and Zoning Board for quite some time. This is a very large property that's near Dale Cemetery, and it's Marble and Americo Circle, I think. And they're basically looking to do a subdivision. There are two different homes on the property, which I understand the owner lives in one and then rents out the other one. And they would like to get out of the landlord-tenant business, go through with a subdivision. And that's why they're going through the process with planning and zoning. The reason that they are here tonight to speak to the Board of Trustees is because, Jamie, if you can go into the agenda item that says survey, or really any of the links under this agenda item, please. There is a structure, which I will leave it to Joe and perhaps Mr. Hernandez to describe, which is sort of like a gazebo that is pre-existing on the property, has been there for quite some time, but unfortunately is in the village's right of way. And the applicant would like to keep it, it seems, because it's very nice, but will need a license agreement from the Board of Trustees in order to effectuate that. The reason that they are here is also because they can't move forward with the planning and zoning process efficiently until they have permission for the license agreement. So with that, I will turn it over to our building inspector, Joe Augustinelli. Joe, is there anything I have missed?
No, good evening. Yeah, no, that it is that structure is one of, you can see on the survey there where the front yard property line is. There's a significant amount of right of way there until from the front property line to Marble Place in the street there. So there's that structure that's there just to the right of where the Sing Sing Kilbrook is. A little abnormal just because of the way the property line is. You can see there's a shared driveway that comes in. So there's a pretty big section of asphalt driveway. I mean, normally most people's driveways obviously have to go to the curb, but there isn't as much right of way as you see there. So they're going to have an agreement for some of that paving there. And then they have all those plantings of bushes that come around the turn along Marble Place there. That's the owners planted those there, but they're in the villages right away. So these are the items there in front of the board for to get an agreement, license agreement to have these items there within the right of way on the village of Austin. But it's under my understanding, and Mr. Hernandez can chime in on there. I'm not sure if the homeowners, are proposing something different, but as far as I know, this is what's remaining in the right of way, and these are items that were suggested that they suggested if they can have them to remain in place as is.
Good evening. I guess it's kind of been captured. The client is trying to subdivide the property so we can have one tax lot per dwelling. They don't have any attachment or feeling towards either the gazebo or the line of trees. Actually, I think the village is extending the sidewalk and they stop on the line where the trees are, so they're willing to take them out if it's needed to continue the sidewalk. But whatever we do or the planning board decides jointly with us to do, whatever, it will need a licensing agreement from the village.
Thank you. We'll start to my left with trustee Fritchie.
Oh, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the village opts to put a sidewalk there. We really wouldn't need a license agreement as long as they're not, if I'm understanding that correctly. If they decide to put a sidewalk from where those bushes are all the way wrap around to the bridge,
Mhm.
And like he says, the homeowner has no problem with that. I'm just saying, then the whole license agreement is pretty much not on the table. Unless
Well,
they're,
to answer to that,
unless they're doing something within the right of way.
There's no work proposed.
right, it's
Yeah.
not proposed to put a sidewalk there. I believe they are stopping at the beginning of that property because the shrubbery is there. So I mean, it may be suggested by the property owner that, if they want to add the sidewalk there, but I don't know if that's actually in DPW has a plan to do that.
No, I'm not saying that they do. I'm just making a case that if DPW decides they want to put a sidewalk there, they can go in and put a sidewalk there and we don't have to worry about any type of license agreement. Correct?
If that was the plan and they were choosing to invest to do that, I'm not sure if that's what they are doing. So
No, I'm not saying that it was the plan. What I'm saying was if DPW decided to put a sidewalk in, the license agreement would not be needed.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Trustee Casada.
Thank you, JV. How are you?
All right.
So just for my own clarification again. So you are asking for a license agreement for the gazebo right now? Or for
Okay.
whatever is structural you have there
Yes,
in the right of way? That's what you're asking.
yes,
I'm in a way, not that I don't care about the trees, but the trees are the trees. They're in a way irrelevant for this particular case.
right. What brought us here is that we are in front of the planning board.
Mhm.
And we were advised by council that whatever, in order to proceed with the subdivision, we will need the license and agreement. Again, we're not proposing to do anything either with the gazebo nor the
Okay.
trees.
And then just refresh my memory again. You mentioned that your client, the owner of this property, is not so much attached to this particular structure.
Right,
So he can choose to remove that.
yes.
Okay, so in that case, there's nothing for us to do.
Okay, I'm not a legal person, but I've been informed that whatever we do, take it, keep it, that it will need to have an approval from the village, right?
I think that's a good point. So even if, to your point, they decide, you know what, we're not attached to this thing, we're gonna take it down, they would need to take it down on village property. So they would still need your permission to do work on village property. So they either need your permission to keep it in perpetuity or your permission to go on village property to remove it.
Yes.
Yeah?
Thank you.
All right.
Really knows the origin story of the gazebo either. It's like nobody knows who's been maintaining it. It's just sort of
That
like
was my
it's
question. How
been
did it
there.
get
Like
built in the first place?
no one.
So,
Did they have a permit? It really shouldn't be there. but-
let me ask you this. So let's say the board does agree to allow this gazebo to stay there. And I guess that will be more like a steward question. A part of their agreement, someone needs to maintain.
Yes,
So that will be, for me, I have no problem with that because I hardly doubt it. The village at any point of time is going to put a sidewalk, even in that portion of there. Just saying.
Just throwing it out
Yeah,
there.
I'm just saying, but this, being familiar with that section, there's not even rhyme or reason to put a sidewalk on that side at this point of time, because there's a town right next door. I guess that will be my only concern. It will be with the
And-
maintenance
yeah.
of the gazebo itself. For me, will be the same thing as we granted a license agreement for the first floor portion of another building, and the stairs, will be whoever owns that lot adjacent to that structure will be the person who in charge of that maintenance itself.
right.
Yeah. So I guess the question will be, Joe, let's say if for some reason in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, violations come along in regards to property maintenance. Because there's a license agreement, the violation will go to that property owner, sure?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. It won't go to the village.
Right.
Just want to make sure. In concept, because I know nothing's gonna happen in there, at least for the next 10 years, and even if in the next 15, 20 years, the village decide to do something with there, we have the right to do so. So me personally, I don't have any opposition in here. The only caveat will be, we'll deal with it the same way that we have dealt with other situations where we have something similar, not similar to this, but when we have come in front of us to ask for permission. That's it.
So just, the subdivision will still be the same owner, correct?
No, there'll be two separate lots.
There'll be two separate lot, two separate owners.
Yes.
So when that happens, there'll be another license agreement needed with the new.
Well,
Why not?
I was just gonna mention that in this case, because we have lot 1 and lot 2, where the gazebo kind of is in front of lot 1 and the landscaping is in front of lot 2, will that be 2 license and agreement?
See, I'm not sure if they're asking for a license agreement for the trees. I think it's more like for the structure itself.
Okay, so,
So I think maybe that's something. Yeah, exactly. I guess.
I believe that
so-
was,
but that's
that was
that's
actually,
not what planning board.
the planning board, I believe, and the land use attorney had said that, you know, those trees along there would have to be included in a license agreement because they are maintained by the property owner and not the village. And the other thing, like I said, was they have a shared driveway there, and because there's such a large portion of that asphalt, it's not a typical size driveway, and the amount of it that's in the right of way was also in question. That who would be maintaining that if that needed to be repaved or so forth. They wouldn't want the property owners to say that it's the village's responsibility to pave up to the property line.
So just for point of clarification, in the draft, our request for a license agreement refers to the row of evergreens planted along Marble Place and its maintenance along to what's proposed to be lot 2. And
Yeah.
the slate patio
Yeah.
with the arbor along lot 1 are outside the property lines.
So, but that was, he drafted that because of the request of the planning board. See, to me, the landscape is the landscape. It's like the sidewalk is my responsibility. I don't expect the village to come in and shovel the snow, or maintain. So to me, it will be the same concept. This property is in front of them. They have the right to maintain that. The town or the village has never maintained this particular property, as far as for what I can see. I think it's a license agreement. Again, this landscape, I have no issues with that. I'm not sure if it will grant the same process. Like we usually charge a fee attached to this. But there's no structural in this other particular lot, it's trees. When it's an structural, when it's a sidewalk, when it's, or stairs, part of a building,
Right.
a wall that was built, we usually have a fee attached to this.
I think the point you're making is a good one, and I want to speak to council about if there's a distinction. But all I can think of is that if these are like little ornamental trees that are not like going to grow appreciably taller or something like that, that the planning board may have thought these are just little decorative things, either take them out or, because it's like a decoration. It's not like an oak tree or something like that, right? So similar to with the arbor or the slate patio, if you want to keep them, you need to maintain them, and there's going to be a payment associated with that. If not, you have to go dig them out on the village property, and we need village permission to
We
do
still
that.
need the agreement.
Basically.
Yes, that's.
But it's for two different owners I forget who said that to your
Yeah.
point, because eventually the Scopes family will sell one of the two parcels, and then the license agreement will carry with that new property owner.
Yes.
So there needs to be a separate license agreement for whatever they want to do with the trees. And that's a little bit harder to arrive at a.
So in concept, I have no problem with that. Regardless if you need one or you need two, either to keep the trees, to remove the trees, however you want to do it. To me, I guess the only question will be, do we treat it the same way as if it was a permanent structure that is actually going to be there at that particular, for that particular lot? The other one to me is, okay, it's a no-brainer. There's a structural in there. I want to treat it the same thing as we've been treating the other agreements that we have done in the past, where there's a fee attached. And because of the trees, I'm not sure how it would treat that portion.
Alternatively, you could say, we're going to do one license agreement for lot 1 that encompasses the arbor and the pavement, and there's a fee associated with that. But with regards to the trees, which would be attached to lot 2, we'd like you to take the trees out. You have our permission to go and do so, and then please be on your way. That seems like a good place to land, because I sort of agree with you. It's hard to monetize something like that.
That would be my recommendation, but
I
again.
think that's okay?
No, but wait, there's other.
No,
There's
but
other members of the
but
board.
is are the property, you didn't mention if they're attached to the little trees or not. You just
Huh?
said they're not attached to the gazebo. Are they attached to the trees?
No.
Okay.
So this gazebo, if it were not there and somebody wanted to build it today, would it require a permit? Would they have to come in front of the building? Is that how big a structure? it is?
Yes.
Okay. So we're being asked to have a license agreement to leave a structure that actually shouldn't have been built.
Or to remove, again.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Like,
I
it's in
understand,
a-
but
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, that's what we're being asked to codify an illegal structure.
so we have a licensing agreement to,
I mean, I have nothing against gazebos. I'm just trying to be, I'm just trying to,
It looks like a wedding arch.
yeah.
I believe was probably something, because the original, the home, the one family home, the one family, I think originally when we did some research, it was like the stone masons.
Yeah, there was actually a small quarry there. That's why
Yes.
it's called Marble Place. And he did monuments for Dale Cemetery from that
Right,
stone.
so that
yeah,
eventually became a residence,
Yeah,
and that's why we have two buildings in one property.
right.
Now, maybe the gazebo was from back then, but again, our
Yeah.
clients,
Look that old?
our clients' intention is to, we're not doing any physical work, just subdivide the property. Now, we have been given this task to have these two items. Let's say for clarified things, so there is no illegal permit, we can remove both trees and gazebo. But either way, we will need license and agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have no, in theory, no problem with agreeing to that. It just seems a little, seems a little weird, that's all to me.
A permit to construct that thing? I don't know if that would be defined as a
Try and
structure.
Sell that, they would be.
They won't be able to.
They won't be able to
They
sell
wouldn't, they
the
wouldn't need
But if
a,
it was on their personal property, would they have required a permit? I
No.
think that's a structure.
no, that would say.
I understand what your question is, but if it was on their private property, they could have built it as of right without a permit, I believe.
Right, they wouldn't need a permit. That's because it's just a decorative feature. It's not like holding any, it's not sheltering. It's not essentially a structure of, snow load and stuff like that. It would be decorative, like putting a trellis or something in your front yard, your entrance.
Yeah, we're gonna put that. We don't need a permit for something like that.
Good. We have 3 so far. I make it 4. Folks that are comfortable with, if you need license agreement, drawing one up that basically keeps it how it is, you subdivide it, leave it. We're
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you, JB. Next up, we have also virtually, we have our treasurer Dale Brennan doing some end of year cleanup specific to the 2025 tax bill. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Treasurer Brennan.
Thank you, Manager Dusori. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Village Board. So as we do every year after the budget has been passed, we start working on getting the tax bill file together in order to get those tax bills in the mail as of December 31st at the latest. We do aim to try to get them out a little earlier. And in that spirit, we're coming to the board with the proposed re-levy for open water amounts that were due prior to June, actually prior to July 1st of 2024. Anything over $100 in a balance is what we pull. We first sent letters out on November 8th and allowed them to pay up until December 2nd for it not to be re-levied onto the tax bill. And actually, we made a small allowance today because somebody came in with cash. So the current amount that was on this memo was $534,642.86. It's actually going to be slightly lower in that with that amount for the final amount that goes on to our tax warrant. But I am working on that tomorrow with our software company to roll that over so that they're not sitting on the water side anymore. They're sitting on the tax side, and we can hopefully get our file out shortly thereafter. So the resolution would go on for next Wednesday for the board to approve, which allows us, covers our bases for the re-levy process, not only with the water open balances, but there is one unpaid overgrowth invoice that is outstanding for $240 that we would like to transfer over to the taxes. And there are 4 property invoices for the ETPA fees that we would also like to transfer over, totaling $5,025 for that. Any questions?
Thank you. We'll start with Trustee White. Trustee Quesada.
Dale, thank you so much. What is the difference between last year's and today's expectations of that payment? For some reason, I think is a little bit higher than it was before. Again, based off and what we have collected on those accounts.
For the ETPA or for the water?
For both.
For the water, we were actually $6,101.89 more than 2023. But I think with the payment received today and then one adjustment, we're probably going to remain about pretty much flat from 23 to 24, but there's actually 6 less properties, water accounts overall, but the dollar amount is relatively flat from one year to the next. In regards to
Sorry, the ETPA, I'm sorry, I know you were going.
Yep, I was going there next. So for the ETPA fees, these 2 of the 4 accounts are actually going to fall off of next year's bill, as Stuart had let me know, which was good. But since the state submits this invoice and it's really for 2003 crossover into 2024, they were still on the current invoice received, so we did pay the state and likewise billed the properties. But we anticipate a reflection of that change coming on next year's invoice, though.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Dale. Thanks as always.
Thank you.
Trustee Fritchie.
Thank you, Dale. I have no comments.
Thank you,
Thank
Trustee Fritchie. No comments from me either. Thank you, Dale.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer. Good night. Enjoy. Our next up, we're going to have a little change in the agenda here. We have Chief Zimmerman, Captain Donahue, and Lieutenant Lance here, as well as Sergeant McGovern. And tonight, they're going to be talking about their Motorola contract for the FlexCAD, or computer-aided dispatch system.
Good evening. How are you? So records management, RMS, is a system with which the police department manages all of our records, our blotter, our incident reports, all of the information that we collect on a day-to-day basis. It's a standard piece of kit for any police department. I'm not aware of any police department that doesn't utilize an RMS. And there are a number of competing vendors. There's no standard company that provides these. We're currently running on our present RMS for the last 21 years. So it's had a heck of a life, maybe even a little bit more than that. So it's certainly very, very overdue for a re-up. We examined a number of different vendors and found that the Motorola offering is the best for us. Motorola acquired a company some years back that was an RMS vendor, and they've polished it up, and it's an established program. It's used by Yonkers Police. So just to give you an idea of the fact that it's able to accommodate a much larger agency than our own. We had committed to a group with a number of other agencies to have the same RMS system and share data through that system. But unfortunately, it's been some years now that we've been trying to make that happen. And it seems pretty obvious at this point that that project really hasn't gained much ground. And we've put an awful lot of time and effort into that system. So it seems time to cut bait and find something that's going to work for us. So we have shifted away from an RMS that was being provided by this group effort. And we had secured money for a component of it called CAD, Computer Aided Dispatch. So we were intending to get this county offered and funded program, and then we would have to pay for the other half of it. And what we found is actually that this Motorola Flex program has both of those items for the same amount of money, or actually a bit less than only the CAD would have been. The CAD component would have been to go along with that other funded project. We are not the only department looking at this. I don't want to name the other departments because they're still working out their contracts, but there's 5 other departments that are looking to go on board with this. 6, excuse me, Chief, 6. There are also other departments in the area that already use this, Peak Skills using this, and there is a data sharing component. So much like the other one that we're having to step away from, we'll be able to share data with other departments as far as interactions with the public, crime data and the like, and we'll be able to access their data as well. So if we come across John Doe today, we can see that he had interactions with these other departments in the past, and that'll help us to share data and communicate with other agencies. It's pretty straightforward. I'm glad to be presenting on something that's based in reality and very factual. So the funding for this was asked for in years past. I think it was originally discussed in 18 for 19 or shortly thereafter, Chief. 2022, okay.
Speaking to as far as the scope of this project, the land goes back, the discussions.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
Sorry, Jamie. So discussions for this project started back in the end of 18 into 19, where we started, really testing the waters to see what was going on. And the project that Captain Donahue is speaking of actually, goes back that long. And it's been since 2019 up until right now that the project that we had planned and intended on participating in has not come to fruition yet in that many years, and there's no end in sight. So we had to kind of pull an audible and try to take a different route. And this was the best available option for the money that we could find that suits our needs, the best that it does. So, kudos to Lieutenant Lance Sergeant McGovern and the captain for kind of spearheading this project. But we've really come to terms with, we found a product that we need, and I think it's one of the best on the market that suits our needs for the money. And the pricing structure, there's an option that extends it out a considerable amount of time, and we have the ability to lock in that price so we can kind of guarantee what we're going to budget for year after year after year, without a fluctuating price for at least 10 years.
And it's we've had a number of meetings with Motorola, and we've seen the product, we've handled the product, and like the chief indicated, being able to stretch this pricing out over a decade guarantees us that we know that number for the next 10 years. We all know that the prices of these things don't go down. So, knowing what we will have over the next 10 years and that we're going to have a working product. And obviously we all know the name Motorola, they're not going away tomorrow. We have that security in that they are an industry leader. Not only will this allow us to continue to operate, it should actually offer a number of benefits, such as better data drawing from that. So we'll be able to have better statistics and better reports. Right now, we're very limited as to what we can get out of it, and the data that we do get out of our system requires an awful lot of time. So those facts and figures and statistics that often come up and are needed to address questions and concerns of the public or the board or whomever requires an awful lot of physical, individual sifting through data rather than just pressing a button, getting the report that you want. It's very labor intensive. So this should be a huge upgrade in that regard as well.
Yeah, the capabilities of the current program far exceed what we've been using for the past 20 years. And, that goes without saying for probably most software platforms at this point.
Thank you. Trustee Quesada, will you kick us off?
Thanks, Captain.
There's no trees or gazebos
There's no part of that agreement. Come on. With that note, I have no questions.
Well done, Chief.
I knew where you were going.
So this is, and I sort of vaguely remember that's those conversations that we had back in 19. And so I'm actually sad and happy at the same time that actually we're going to be getting something that actually is going to be working for you guys going forward, that you find something that is suitable to what we have, the needs right now and probably in the future. I guess my questions divide more into the technology and the requirements and what do you need? Because I know there's a couple capital projects that you guys are working on for the police department itself, for your equipment. We working into some of the infrastructure that that we have budgeted already. How this is going to integrate with what you guys are trying to do right now, and is any additional equipment that you guys may need without, again, I just want to prevent any additional costs to the village.
Sure.
If anything,
yeah.
Even through grant portions that you may be looking into, because you said all the departments have the similar.
Sure.
Yeah.
So a couple things there to unpack. First, the plan that's presented covers every part of it. There is a physical component, server component. The program that we have now we will be sunsetting, but keeping as an archive that will run alongside our new system. So there will be no migration cost. Sometimes that's a massive investment. It's getting the old data into the new system. The old system is clunky enough that there is data in there that is either redundant or superfluous. So we will be starting with clean data. So we will have all the records that we have now, but we'll be starting with new data.
Ask you one question right there though, because now that I don't want to compare softwares or departments, but when we went through the process of like where I worked, we have two systems because we chose not to at that time, whoever chose not to migrate the systems. The system that we have that's it. There's no maintenance. There's nothing that we can do even to upgrade. If it breaks, it breaks. Pretty much. So my concern will be, plus not only that, but now you have two systems in your computer. So have you thought about maybe doing a migration on this?
Well,
if anything, if possible.
We
have a migration from the data that we have. It would almost be cost prohibitive to do that. It's an exorbitant amount of money to migrate that data, because one, it has to be cleaned and then it has to be brought over, because we're not going to pull over bad information, right?
The quote we got was $60,000 to pull over data out of the old system.
But the old data, to your point about reliability, it has been virtualized and it is redundant. So it's not going to break. We have backup to it. It should remain stable. It's just an old enough system that it's time to say goodbye to it and move to this new system, which is supported, upgraded. Motorola's really has a very good product. We got very aggressive quote from them. I think that the pricing is very good. It continued to go down as departments came on board and were expressing interest. Our number went down, and that's sort of how we're able to use this funding to extend it into a 10-year contract, which again saves us money over.
Can you talk about price? You mentioned the price. So what is the cost of this program itself, or what this is gonna entail? You know that. So, yeah, no, I
Yeah.
but I want them.
Mike has all the, there was two main options, a 5-year and a 10-year option. And Mike has all the pricing and everything. But to your other, I think I know where you were going with that, with like, if the old system were to go down. Right now, that old system that we're using, or the old system that we're currently using. If it were to go down right now, it would be unsupported by the vendor. It's
Right.
it's
That's-
it's an unsupported system.
Mhm.
We would be able to retain the data that we have, but we would, there's no updates to it. There's no maintenance to it. So in essence, it's gone extinct.
It's Windows 10 by the end of the year, pretty much. They're
First,
not
yeah,
gonna be,
yeah,
yeah.
But it is on an inside network. It's not connected to
Right,
the
it's
internet.
not on a
So the
web.
data's not going to go anywhere. And again, it's virtualized and we have a redundancy. So that data is not going to go anywhere. But
Okay.
with the new system, you won't be able to make some of these bad data errors that the old one would. The old system would let you add John Doe, born January 1, 1980, 100 times if you wanted to. So if every officer in the department had an interaction with this person, and rather than looking them up, they just added them as a new person. Now you have these redundant individuals in the system. The new system checks that and doesn't allow you to make a new person with that same exact data. So these are the kind of advancements that allow for cleaner data moving forward.
Thank you. That helps.
When P-Skill implemented their system, they did exactly what we're talking about. They left their old system in place as a legacy system and implemented the Motorola system as a fresh system and started populating their data that way. But you asked about pricing. When we first started talking to Motorola back in September, the price they gave us was about 37% off what their list price is. So their initial quote was $682 for 5 years, roughly $682 and some change for 5 years. So as $682,000 for 5 years. So our latest quote, after we've had numerous meetings with them and other departments have expressed interest and have gotten on board with the project, our most recent 5-year quote is $624,000. And our 10-year quote is $885,000, which represents roughly 45% discount off of what their list price is. So it did come down significantly from our initial talks with them based on our collaboration with these other agencies and the year end approaching and Motorola wanting to close out their books with some extra customers in there. But the pricing is standard, like the captain said. This program definitely meets our needs, and if we can lock in the 10-year rate, we know exactly what it'll be. And that rate also includes the annual support. Motorola comes out with quarterly updates, and they'll support the software, they'll support the hardware. They're just a phone call away, or if it's a low priority, we can go online and issue a trouble ticket, and then they'll get to us, next business day and resolve our issue. But we'll have access to the support, which we don't have now, and we'll have access to updates, which we don't have now. We'll have somebody to call and say help, which we don't have now, unfortunately.
Thank you. Just for 1 second. Dale, could you refresh my memory? 2019, what was the budget number for this particular project itself?
It was 22.
22 when that was approved. Thanks, Chief.
When it was actually created as a capital project, we established it in 2024 at 500,000. I think prior we had guesstimates, so to speak, nothing that had any rigor, to back up the numbers that were presented. I think at one point it was as low as 350,000, but that was when it was supposed to be a pooled, shared item with a piece of it being paid for, actually, I believe, by the county. The chief can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but
Thank you. And now part of the 24 budget itself, with the $500,000, was there a number of years attached to that?
that was basically based on the initial setup. Because
Setup
Mhm.
Without accounting for.
Right, so essentially with this plan, we're getting that, that initial setup plus, extending it over 10 years really leads to cost savings as well as, like we said, we've brought in some departments. And Motorola frankly is trying to have a larger footprint in Westchester. They know that if Westchester County adopts this at a larger rate, at a more regular rate, they can then use that to leverage sales in other parts of the state. So, they want to, it's also close to the end of the year, so they have a board to speak to and they want to make those sales projections as well. So a number of things are in our favor here. Timing, the ability to negotiate as a group. These are all sort of, the stars are lining up in our favor here to get I think a very good deal for a very good product.
Okay. I don't have any additional questions right now, but I may, so I may come back.
Given the size of the number, I'm just wondering why this wasn't in the budget, discussed as part of the budget process.
It's already approved as a capital project
It's already approved?
and created. And actually, I did a bond resolution for it earlier in 2024. I think they were just doing their legwork to catch up to you guys, already establishing it.
So the point of tonight discussing it, since it's already been approved in the budget, is just.
You're still gonna have to do a resolution to authorize the purchase, but it is the
It's an
the
addition-
setup
yeah,
cost.
Yeah.
And then the annual cost over the period of 10 years is
So
in the
it's-
total amount,
Yeah,
so.
so we have $500,000 and they're asking for $800,000 for the 10-year commitment.
Right,
Anyway, if
but
that's
the
my
setup
understanding.
cost, the capital portion of that, I believe, is actually less than $500,000.
Yes, it's
Like 442 or
440, yes, 442, 168,
Right.
49 cents.
Yeah, so the year one cost is
It has to go back.
442 and change.
Yeah.
The support services and
Hold on,
annual.
Dan, just so folks are able to follow the conversation, if the chief can go, and then if you can add in after that.
After, the initial capital investment, the remainder of years 2 through 9, I think the plan was to include that in our operating budget for 26, 27, 28, 29, and so on.
I remember that.
Right, so the investment now would be 442, 168, and 49 cents. And then with the understanding that we come back annually for that annual annual piece, which is 43,000 and change up to 47,000 and change over a period of time. Excuse me, up to 55,000 and change in the year 10. So there is a small annual increase, but again, it's something that we've already always had. There's always been an associated cost. It's just sort of the cost of doing business. And to your point, Trustee White, this did take a long time because it is a big price tag and it's something that we touch every day. It's a piece of software that we use every single day. It's sort of our bread and butter. So we want to make sure we got it right.
A couple of vendors we reached out to, they don't have it running in New York, so we weren't able to even, hey, is there a department that's running this? Can we go see how it works? Well, no, we're not, we're not running it in New York, so you can't go see it where it works. So we went to PCLES, we went to a couple demos with Motorola.
Peekskill, we had a number of meetings in another agency that we're hosting the salespeople. Again, I don't want to call any departments out by name because it might hurt their current relations with their current vendors if they have one. So, but again, it really is a very fine product from obviously a very established vendor. So, it is a long-term, even just getting this up and running, it takes a number of months. So we're excited to get it up because it really will change our day-to-day and how we do business and let us respond for those requests for data more efficiently as well. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with Trustee Frishy. It sounds good.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next on the agenda we'll be talking about the Westchester County Hazard Mitigation Plan, the 2026 update, and we do have a request for a letter of intent, and I will let Assistant Village Manager Maddie Zahach bring you up to speed with that. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good night.
Thank
Good night.
Oh, so we have two agenda items left. This one is very short. And the other one I will ask for some patience in advance. So the hazard mitigation plan is something that all municipalities are required to have. I believe everyone here was on the board the last time we went through this because it wasn't all that long ago. I believe they were supposed to do it in 2020. There was some delays, obviously, due to COVID. And so I think we adopted the village-specific appendix for the Westchester County Hazard Mitigation Plan in 2022. However, that plan expires at the end of 2026. So we're back in the hamster wheel. And at this point, the only step that needs to be taken is this letter of intent. So FEMA provides technical assistance funding for counties to be able to update their hazard mitigation plans on a regular time frame. We would not be eligible for this just as the village of Ossining or just as the town of Ossining. We have to be part of a county. And so the county is, taking the lead as they did on the last one to hire a consultant. They're going after the grant, and then they will be providing the technical assistance to us as an individual municipality. So if the board is aligned with this, we will have a resolution on next week to sign that letter of intent. Our match is really just staff time. So it'll be probably largely the manager's office as well as the village engineer, our recreation superintendent, and also our water superintendent. Again, this is to make sure that all of the facilities within the village of Ossining are safe and protected to the degree possible in the case of a flood, any sort of other emergency that may hopefully will never befall us. And like I said, we went through this not too terribly long ago, so I don't imagine we're going to have huge updates, but freshen up nonetheless.
Thank you. Trustee Fritchie? Trustee Casada? Thank you. Trustee White?
Can everyone make sure their microphones are on?
Explain to me what the letter of intent would say.
Sure. So the letter of intent is basically a format that Westchester County has prepared. So we're basically just going to slot in our name, Village of Ossining, and it's basically saying that we commit to be part of the consortium that's going to work with other municipalities in Westchester County to tap into this technical assistance funding from FEMA in order to refresh our plan. That's it.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, you wanna keep going? since you're on a roll?
Sure. Last but not least, I have provided for the board some printouts, and it's also in the agenda. So Jamie, if you could maybe open up the one that's called timeline. This is, I've been told, the last element of the CAPI program. And we have been told this several times, so perhaps it's for real this time. CAPI Adapt is something that we've been working on with the town of Ossining. And basically, for folks who are following along at home, CAPI was the climate, I can't remember the acronym. It's an inventory, basically, of, sorry, Jamie, it's not this one. It's the next agenda item. So basically that was doing a survey of municipal facilities and municipal employees, how we can measure, benchmark, and then hopefully reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. The next step is actually putting together a plan to do just that. So there are two tabs in the agenda. One is the timeline, and then the other is further considerations. This is something that's going to be an appendix to the report, which and I have to give credit where it's due. The town supervisor's office has been working very hard on this, as well as Susie Ross from Green Ossining and David Margulis, who is part of the town EAC, putting together a plan that will also come before you very shortly. This is just an appendix in that plan. But basically, this is a timeline for some steps that we can commit with as much certainty as possible in this current day and age and climate to do going forward to help make the village and town of Ossining more resilient. So it's divided into three different categories. The first is infrastructure, second is environmental, and the final is social. And so again, this is in the agenda for anyone who wants to follow along. It was recommended by our coordinator that we try to stick to about 5 items in each of those sections, just to make sure that we really can get them across the finish line. The second page, which has many, many more items, is not something that we're bound to in any way, but just so we can basically keep track of other neat ideas we had for going forward that we may want to implement at some time in the future, should resources, time, and conditions allow. So if anyone has any questions about any of these specifically, I'm happy to go into it in more detail. I will breeze through this, and then if you have a question, you can give me a hands up. Many of these are town village actions. So again, this is subject to the approval of the town board as well. The first one is what we were just discussing, updating the hazard mitigation plan, which is scheduled to begin next year. Energy use reduction goals in municipally owned buildings. This is something that was recommended that we can look at systems that will help us to sort of automatically change the temperature. We've been working on this a little bit with the grid rewards program, that if we know that it's going to be a very hot day and we want to help the grid not end up using a peaker plant, we're able to set the thermostats in advance so that we're sort of pre-cooling the buildings, and then when it's necessary, we're able to ease up on the air conditioning. Installing solar panels at municipal buildings, as the board knows, we're already working towards that. Considering legislation enabling battery energy storage for return back into grid. This is something that the town of Ossining already has, and the village was just approached very recently by a property who's looking to do it. So it's already sort of on our dance card. Waterfront climate adaptation, that's a holdover from the Cornell Cooperative Adaptive Design Studio. And then finally, introduction of a water conservation policy for our municipal buildings. The board might remember a couple years ago, we had vouchers for the low, do you remember what they were called? The low flush toilets. And so basically enacting a policy that whenever one of those fixtures in a municipal building is replaced, we will replace it with one of those. Does anyone have any questions on the infrastructure category? Okie doke. Under environmental, continue to invest in electric lawn care equipment. Bill Garrison and his team in the Village Parks Department has been doing a bang up job of this already, but there's always room for more. Move to electric vehicles as cost effective and funds become available. The board's already all over this too. Continue to establish and promote pollinator pathways, update tree protection legislation. Both of those are things that we've discussed on an ongoing basis. Creating and adopting a green purchasing policy. This is something that we could include in our regular procurement policy every year that just said we have a preference for materials and supplies that can be sourced in more responsible ways. Obviously, if it costs 3 times as much, we would not go forward, but just that there would be a preference for those types of materials. Conducting a natural resource inventory. Kate Schlott, who's the current chair of our EAC, is very excited about this one. She's been talking about it for quite some time. Formalize a parks maintenance plan and update the local waterfront revitalization plan. We got a grant from the Department of State 2 years ago to do that work, and so we're scheduled to get after it in 2026. So that's what we have under environmental. Shouldn't really be anything new, but happy to answer any questions in case clarity is needed. Not so much. Okay. And last but not least, social. So a big part of CAPI Adapt is to make sure that not only are we taking these actions, but also we're engaging the community and bringing folks along with us, and also giving folks an opportunity to weigh in. Weigh in on whether they think our approaches are complete, far-reaching enough, et cetera. So protecting and preserving the Killbrook, which is going to be part of the 30 Water Street project. Again, something with which this board is familiar. There's a couple on here that we have marked off for being in every year because it's sort of an ongoing process as social media and community engagement tends to be. So promoting preparedness is a big one, making sure that our municipal website is very clear about what folks should be doing in emergencies. Right now, we only really refer to snow emergencies, I believe, but there are different types of emergencies, again, that hopefully we won't have to deal with, but could happen. Developing a post-damage assessment plan and communication strategy. We sort of have this with the Office of Emergency emergency management, but it's something that we could probably formalize a bit. Review our communications plan. This is for things outside of emergencies, but basically sort of reassessing the work that Jamie does and making sure that there's no spots that we're missing in terms of making sure that folks are getting the information they need in the format that they can digest it. Project Mover is the next one. So already well underway in the village, coming to the town. Promote buy local, as well as the food scraps program, and then regularly communicate access to outdoor community assets. So that is what we have in the social category. And again, this is what the plan is hoping that we will take our very best efforts to abide by. The other list, which I'm not going to go through because it's rather long, are things that we're not committing to do, but just things that we want to keep on a tickler list in case opportunities come up in the future. Perhaps we could apply for a grant and say, hey, we've already decided that we want to look at this. So basically just laying the groundwork for future grant work or grant funded projects in future. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them, but otherwise the next step of this, and again, we have to wait for the town to do their bit, is going to be to adopt the CAPI Adapt plan overall. So we're hoping that's going to be before the end of the year, but basically wanted to get the board's feedback on this element of it, and then the rest of it is much longer, but a different format altogether.
Thank you. Trustee White.
I will say,
Wow.
Susie Ross did a tremendous job. This was definitely a team effort, going through both the town and village comprehensive plans, as well as different studies that the town and village have done in the past couple years, and trying to sort of cherry pick things that seem most viable.
Well, I'll say the flood mitigation is certainly something to think about because cars are regularly getting flooded out at the, down by the train station. And I don't know whether there's any way to do anything about that. The other, the local waterfront revitalization plan, is that the one that was done way back when?
I think the last one is about 20 years
Yeah.
old, and this would be the thing that we got the grant for would be to
Yeah, that
refresh that,
badly
that
needs
work.
to be updated. I think especially some of the development stuff. So, yeah, looking forward to that. Thanks.
Trustee Quesada.
Hey, I think the only question that I have in here is more of a, I guess, dynamics and what is going to happen next year. But you did say that you have been approached, or someone approached the village in regards to storage energy. A lot of municipalities have put a moratorium, more or less, and a lot of this stuff, and that was actually one of the reasons why I was in your town on their work session, because I wanted to see what they had. I'm not sure the town. I think the town, what did they do? So I think they don't have a moratorium. They had one, but they passed.
I'm not sure about any moratorium. I believe they have the legislation, but I'm not aware that they have put a moratorium on applications.
Okay. So my concern is that because even the building code doesn't have anything in there, and the building code is not going to get established until 2025, 2026 with updates and regulations from the state. So if someone is approaching the village and we don't have any foundations in here, that would be my concern.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever this board decides to move forward, just advise you guys to look into something, if not soon rather than later, because that's common. A lot of municipalities are being approached and something like that, and even zoning related. It's not just regulations from the state, but it becomes a local regulation on where these type of manufacturers, I guess, so distributions are going to be taking place. So, but besides that, I think a lot of the stuff, I'm okay. I'm okay with that, but that would be my only concern.
Okay.
Trustee Fritchie.
Well, to say the least, it's a lot to take in. So, and I'm still going over, but it sounds like we're on target. And what's the next step?
So the next step, I know the town supervisor as of today was still sort of combing through some of the recent changes that we sort of collectively had made. I think they need to bring it to their board next week to sort of go through this list that I've presented this evening, see if they have any more fine tuning to do. And then once everyone agrees, there's going to be a resolution for the village board and then separately the town board to adopt the CAPI ADAPT plan for 2024 for the village and town. And this will be an appendix to that plan. The whole plan, basically, it's about half canned material because it's talking about a lot of the communities in Westchester and sort of, you know, areas of flooding and rainfall averages and things that are not Ossining specific. The rest of it is sort of talking about the town and village as municipalities, what we've done in the past to sort of reduce our greenhouse gases before CAPI, and then going forward, how we're going to prioritize things and what infrastructure, staff wise and you know structurally we have to be able to carry those things out. So that's sort of the document that the board will be asked to adopt. Like I said, we're hoping to get it done before the end of the year, but we're cutting it close because it's a lot of work. So fingers crossed.
You good? Thank you. I'm good as well. Village manager, I think we're all set, yeah?
Concludes our program for this evening.
All right, well. At 9:02 PM Eastern Standard Time, we draw to a close. What did I say? 10:02? I said 9? Oh, see?